Yo, what is up everybody? Partywaffles here, and today I'm making you guys an 11.1 The War Within Season 2 Unholy DK PvP guide so that you guys can succeed in the War Within Season 2 and hit all your goals, rank 1, glad, whatever you want to do. For those of you guys that don't know me, my name is Partywaffles. I'm a multi-rank 1 Death Knight, Frost, and Unholy, and I'm going to teach you guys what I know today. So going into this, we're going to take a look at these builds here. We're going to look at everything, right? We're going to look at the talents, PvP talents, gearing, everything, okay? How to do damage, everything you need to know. But the first thing we're going to look at here is the talents, okay? So the way I've been leaning this season with talents is towards a Clawing Shadows build. So if you played last season, there was mainly like a Plague Bringer version of the build that I'm going to show you today, which was the extra dot build. And then there was the Clawing Shadows build, which some people played into ranged. But yeah, so what we're going to cover today is the Clawing Shadows build, okay? This is what I think is going to be the best, especially with tier set later. This is what we're going to be covering. Again, the build from last season, though, the dot build with the Plague Bringer variation, if you want to learn how to play that, because that build is still good and potentially still BIS in some situations. If you want to learn how to play the build from last season on top of the Clawing Shadows build, so you can play both to counter-spec what you're fighting, or if you don't want to play the Clawing Shadows, you want to play that, you can look at the guide from last season. So I'll pop that up on the screen. Check out the guide from last season if you want to learn how to play the dot build, but if you want to play the Clawing Shadows build that I think I'm going to be playing here, that's what this guide's going to be about mainly. So yes, you have the resources for both builds, but let's get right into this. So on the left side here, I'm just going to highlight some things we have and some things that are changeable. And then on the right side, I'll highlight some other things. So on the left side here, we have just, of course, our typical, we have our blind for our crowd control. We have our kick. We have double chains, just a bunch of utility, right? But I'll tell you more so what you can change about this, okay? So about this build, what you can change. The juggling talents are basically these two, right? Gloom Ward and Icy Talons. You can get rid of these talents and you can switch them to whatever you want. So if you prefer to play Abomination Limb, you can juggle those two talents over there. Or if you don't want to play Abomination Limb, or if you have like a priest on your team or something with absorbs, you can switch to Gloom Ward. If you don't have something on your team with absorbs and you don't care about making your anti-magic shell a little bigger, you could swap the Gloom Ward over to kick. If it's looking like this, if you're fighting against something and there's no casters, you can juggle the anti-magic zone around to say blood draw for an extra defensive. But basically on this side, you just counter spec whatever you're fighting. If you're trying to min max, you're just going to counter whatever you're fighting. If there's no magic, you remove the zone and put it into something else. If there is magic, you could even buff the zone, right? You could juggle the Gloom Ward over there, or you could have extra kicks, whatever you want, right? So the left side is all about just learning how to counter spec different things. So that's the main part there. In the middle here, it's going to be a Riders of Apocalypse build, okay? As per usual. Maybe later on in the season when we get our tier set, Sand Lane might get some more value, but at the moment I'm sticking with Riders. Again, if anything severely changes, I'll make an updated one in the middle of the season for us. But yes, so we're playing Riders of the Apocalypse here. The main talent that you'll ever be able to switch between these is going to be this one right here, okay? So this is the only talent you'll change ever for these. So on the right side, the Pact of the Apocalypse is going to be damage reduction versus everything. And on the left side, it's going to be only against magic damage reduction. So if you're fighting an entire team of magic damage or casters or something like that, then I like to opt for this. If you're fighting anything physical, even if it's caster physical, I'll go for this because this isn't going to do anything versus physical damage. So, and then on the right side, the core of this build is that it's a Clawing Shadows build, okay? So Clawing Shadows just makes your Scourge Strike into a ranged ability. So the main things about this build, essentially it's the exact same as last season's build, okay? You have your dots, you have Unholy Assault, Abomination. It's essentially the same as last season. This is the only difference, okay? We're switching from Plaguebringer to Clawing Shadows, and then this talent right here, last season we had it in Ghoulish Frenzy. If we're playing Clawing Shadows, we're going to switch this over to Rotten Touch because this is the main thing you're going to be playing around. Reaping and Rotten Touch. So what's going to happen is when you have a Rotten Touch proc, Rotten Touch is going to be when your Death Coil lights up, okay? When your Death Coil lights up, which is a Sudden Doom, that is going to give you the Rotten Touch. So when you shoot the Sudden Doom coil, the coil proc at the target, they're going to get a Rotten Touch proc on them for 10 seconds, which is going to increase the damage of your Clawing Shadows against the target. So that's one of your modifiers that's going to make this Clawing Shadows potentially hit really hard, okay? There's quite a few modifiers, but the main two is going to be Reaping and Rotten Touch. So Reaping, when the enemy is below 35% health, you do 30% additional damage. So this 30% plus this percentage, they all start to add up, right? So if you get the enemy below 35% health and you have this proc already on them, and you have wounds on the target, once you press a Clawing Shadows into the target below 35% health with the wound, it's going to hit very hard. Very, very hard. It's going to be like an execute, essentially. So that's going to be the main thing about landing kills with this build, okay? What I just told you there. But so that's essentially the build, right? That's the build. One thing to note, though, once we get our tier set, so a tier set, for those of you guys that don't know, is a set of gear that has a special 2-piece and 4-piece bonus, okay? I'm going to show you these bonuses in a little bit. I'll show you the bonus, but once we get our 4-piece bonus, every time we press Dark Transformation, it's going to make us do about 40% more coil damage. So later on in the season, when we get our 4 set, I might opt to switch Defile to Ghoulish Frenzy, or even Fever to Ghoulish Frenzy. The reason being, if you read this talent, when you press Dark Transformation, increases your attack speed and your damage of you and your monstrosity. So since the tier set is already going to be buffing us when we press Dark Transformation, this would be another buff, which would synergize really well. So I potentially will switch one of these two talents later on into that once we get the 4 set. But right now, this is what I'm playing. So you know the variations you can use on the left, on the right. That's the talents right there. So let's take a look at the PvP talents really quickly, though, because some things have changed. Not a lot, but some. So again, these talents, I'm not going super in depth about every single talent here, because I did that on the last guide, right? So if you want to see a full like hour-long guide that tells you, explains every single talent, just refer back to the guide from last season, because again, the talents are the same, right? The build isn't quite the same because we're playing Clawing Shadows, but the talents are the same. And the build from last season is still relevant in some matchups if you prefer it. So again, check that out if you want to know that. So let's see here. We're going to talk about the PvP talents, like I said. Life and Death, completely disregard this. I've never played this in any situation ever. Just completely take this out of your mind. It's completely irrelevant. Dark Sim, this talent's really good, okay? If you're playing with something already that has a silence, then you could play Dark Sim instead, depending if there's anything to steal from the enemy, right? Because then that way, if you don't play silence, you get asphyxiate. So you have a stun baseline even without silence. So you could potentially have like a stun and a fear, right? If you play Dark Sim and you steal fears from the lock or something. So this talent is actually good now. Reanimation. I'm not sure if this is worth playing, to be honest. I don't know. I don't think so. It's severely nerfed since they released it back in Dragonflight. So it hasn't been played for multiple seasons. I don't think it's worth, but we'll see. Necro Bargain. Necro Bargain is nice. It's a damage talent. So you get rid of your pets, but you get sort of a dot, a percent damage dot. So I like to play this into like Resto Druids, stuff with hots like that, Presvoker, anything like that. Not a bad talent at all. Again, if you're switching any of these talents, though, the one you would generally be changing is this Doom Burst, okay? This is your flex talent, the Doom Burst. That's the one you would generally be changing. But if you're playing with a silence, or you don't need a silence, or you need a stun, then you could drop your silence and switch that. Rotten Wither. This talent's decent. Defile does a lot of damage, so it's kind of just like, you know, a healing absorb. If everybody's going to be perfectly stacked in your Defile the entire time, then you could get some good value for this. It's not useless. Bloodforged Armor. Deathstrike reduces all physical damage taken by 20% for 3 seconds. So this is nice if you're playing into physical damage. You just need a little bit of more tank to survive. Right now, without gear, it seems a little squishy. I feel like I can't tank people out with this right now, but we're getting the new gear and HP is going to be increased. So after we get all those things, I feel like that we're going to be able to tank people out pretty good with this later in the season. Spell Warded. This is good to you can put an AMS, anti-magic shell, on your teammates, okay? So your healer gets intimidation stunned by the hunter, and then he's going to get trapped out. You just AMS the trap, right? AMS a fear. AMS, use it to stop a crowd control on your healer at a super important time. Or you can use it on your teammate. Say like your teammate gets kidney shotted and they're in a bomb, and you can just, you know, throw the anti-magic shell on them to save them. Really good team utility ability right there. You definitely want to use that. And then Necrotic Wounds. So Necrotic Wounds was baseline, okay? For like, since it's existed, we basically never changed this talent. Going into this patch, they actually nerfed this talent. So it used to heal. Once the wounds came off the target, it would heal you for the amount they absorbed. But that's not the case anymore. So there is a world where maybe I will drop this sometimes, potentially. I'll update you guys more on that. But as of right now, I'm still playing it for the healing reduction that it puts on them. The healing absorb. But yeah, it definitely lost some of its value. So, but there's the PvP counts, guys. Generally, this is kind of what I have, something like this. But yeah, so you can just switch those out how I just explained. All right, so now that we know about the talents and everything, let's go on into the next part. Okay, guys, the next thing we're going to talk about here is gearing, okay? So this might seem a little complicated, but I'm going to try to make it seem simple for you guys. So coming out right now with the new season, this is how we're going to gear. We're going to get the green gear first, the honor gear immediately. And then after that, there's going to be 3 different types of gear, okay? There's going to be crafted gear, like this piece, crafted pieces. And then there's going to be conquest pieces, like normal pieces that you buy from the vendor, right? Normal conquest pieces. And then there's going to be bloody token pieces, okay? So there's going to be a Sparks quest over from this guy over here, Rufius, where you get Sparks. And with Sparks and bloody tokens, you can also buy epic gear that is just slightly weaker than the conquest gear, okay? So at the start of the season, you're going to want to get the bloody token gear just because you're going to be able to get more epics faster by getting all the different kinds. So going off that, what I'm going to do the first week for my gear is this, okay? So assuming the first week is just like last season, we're going to get 9 crafting items off the rip. Once we do a couple games, we should get 9 of these from a quest, assuming it's like last season. With the free 9 heraldries that we get, I'm going to craft 2 rings and a necklace, okay? The first week. What that does is that gives me 3 off pieces, right? And the rings and necklace are both pieces that can have sockets. So I can hypothetically get 6 gems off the rip, okay? So first week, boom, that's what I'm going to do with my heraldries. With my conquest, I'm going to buy 1 piece of tier, okay? I'm probably going to buy the helm because my priority is I want to get the 4 set of tier as fast as possible, because for Unholy, this 4 set is very strong. So what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to buy the helm or one of the expensive pieces. And then once you get 1600, you're going to get another token to transform another piece. So the pieces that I'm going to be spending my conquest on first is going to be the main stat pieces. All like helm, chest, legs, gloves, except for legs. Legs is the only piece of tier we won't be getting, okay? So we will be using all 4 of these pieces of tier, the PvP version. So helm, shoulders, chest, and hands. Legs we will not be using because the tier legs have crit. So we will be using the normal conquest legs. So again, first week, I'm just going to prioritize buying all the main set pieces, okay, that I can convert into tier. And then once you get 1600, you get an extra tier conversion. So we're going to get those off. We're going to craft the off pieces. We're going to buy conquest main pieces. And then with bloody token gear, what you're going to do is we're going to use the bloody tokens for the other pieces that have a gem slot in them, okay? So you can put a gem in bracers. You can put a gem in belt. So what I'm going to do is, with my bloody token pieces from the first week, I'm going to try to buy belt and bracers, because then I have almost all I have all the pieces that can have a gem in them, right? Which is going to be an early power spike. So bloody token, bracers, belt, crafted, necklace, and rings. And then conquest, I'm going to buy like main stat, head, shoulders, chest, gloves. And then weapon, you're going to get a free weapon, okay? Once, I think it's 2,500 conquest or something. It's either I think it's the second week, second or third week. We just passively get a free weapon if it's the same as the first season. So I'm going to get the free weapon like that. And then I'll just buy all the rest of the pieces. But that right there is basically the route that I'm going to go for the pieces. Okay. In terms of embellishments, for your crafted items, you can have embellishments on your items. Okay. So that is this right here. You see where it says equipped, your damaging spells and abilities have a chance to deal X damage, blah, blah, blah. That special equipped effect is the embellishment, okay? So the first week, we're just going to embellish both of those crafted rings. The rings we craft, we're going to embellish both of them right there with this embellishment effect, which is called focusing lens, okay? It's just, you just go to the auction house, type in focusing lens, and that's the item. That's the embellishment. So now you know all the items you're going to buy right away for the first week, even the first 2 weeks. You know what embellishments you're going to put on, everything like that. So let's talk about stats and everything. So with this build that we're going to be playing, this Clawing Shadows build, Clawing Shadows does really well with high haste, okay? So these were my stats from last season. We're going to build on these. So what we're going to do this season is we're going to go 27% haste, okay? For Clawing Shadows, I'm going to go around 27% haste in PvP combat. So if you want to know what you have in PvP combat, you can just attack a dummy. But I'm going to go 27 haste in PvP combat. I'm probably going to bump the versatility up to like 27 to 30. I think I'm going to bump verse 27 to 30. I might keep it 25, we'll see. But definitely going to go 27 haste. 27 haste, 27 verse. And then I'm just going to put all the rest of it into mastery, okay? So that's what I recommend, guys. That's what I recommend. And that will work for both builds. Like if you want to play Clawing or if you want to play last season's build, that will work for both of them. So again, that's 27 haste, 27 verse, and then full mastery. And then, yes, with the 2 embellished items that I told you about and the gearing route that I told you about. So since we have that figured out, I'm just going to tell you guys, which enchants to go for in gems here, okay? So if you're playing the embellishment that I just told you about, it does damage based off your gems. So I just like to stick with Onyx gems. But honestly, you guys can go with whatever gems you want. Whatever gems get you to the stats that I just told you, you'll be good. So it's not a big deal. Just grab the gems that fit the stats template that I just told you to go for. In terms of you can get one of these gems, one of these 181 primary stat gems. You can either grab the red one that makes you take less damage in CC, the Enduring Bloodstone it's called, or you can grab this one. It's not a big deal, but just make sure you get one of those primary stat gems. And then in terms of enchants, it's going to be on Cloak. You can go Leeching Fangs on Cloak, or you can go the speed one. It's up to you. The reason that I went Leeching Fangs is because I was playing some Battleground Blitz. So if I'm not in combat for a few seconds, my health would start healing up. So I kind of really like that for that. Crystalline Radiance on the chest. 1,000 plus speed on the bracers. On your weapon, it's going to be the same as always, right? Rune of Fallen Crusader. And then gloves. We don't have an enchant. Make sure you put a gem in your belt. Legs is going to be the 930 strength, 895 stamina enchant. Boots, I have Scout's March. And then at the moment on my rings, I have Cursed Haste. So Cursed Haste is going to leech some of your versatility for more haste, which if you have a lot of versatility, it's okay. You can do that. But if you don't, then again, just get whatever enchant is going to go toward the stats that you're going for. Because remember the stat template I just told you about. And again, if your stats are off by a % or 2, it doesn't really matter, right? Just try to get like the stat template I'm going for, because you will really benefit a lot with Clawing Shadows with high haste. And 27% haste, when that 27 haste, when you throw this down and everything else, it's actually going to get you to another global. So really good there. But let's just take a look at the tier set I was talking about really quickly too. So this is the tier set right here, guys. Again, you're going to go for the 4 set. So that means just wearing 4 pieces. Once you do that, when you press Dark Transformation, your Death Coil is going to do 40% more damage during your Dark Transformation. And you can actually keep your Dark Transformation up quite decently with this just by spamming Death Coil. So a lot of things about this build benefit from Coil, right? Like Death Rot, you get your Coil stacks, you get your Death Rot stacks up from coiling. It's 10% more damage there. So you have a lot of little modifiers, right? And once you maximize them all, your Rotten Touch will do a lot of damage. Your Clawing Shadows will do a lot of damage. But that's basically the gearing, guys. That's basically the gearing. So I'm just going to reiterate it one last time, okay? So with the first week, with your free crafting pieces, we're going to get double rings necklace, and then I'm going to buy one of the expensive pieces, like main set pieces, so that I can get my tier, because we're going to prioritize buying with our conquest the main set pieces so we can get our 4 set. because you can convert them. And then we're going to get the weapon for free, and we're going to use our bloody token off pieces for the pieces with sockets that we don't have yet, that we didn't craft, which is belt and bracers, okay? So that's what we're going to go for the first week or two there. All right, let's get in the next part. All right, boys, so let's talk about how to do damage, okay? So I'm just going to go over your like general rotation, and then I'll go over your burst rotation. So your normal rotation, it's more or less like this, right? As much as you can, try to keep a defile below them, just because we're playing a talent that makes our defile slow them, and it's also such a short cooldown, and it does a lot of damage. So whenever you can, try and keep a defile below them if possible. Other than that, try to keep your dots on everybody just for the runic power generation and just for the damage. And not only that, but for morbidity. So when we have our disease on people, they actually take more damage per disease too. Not only that, but we also have brittle, which can proc even more damage on them. So try to keep your diseases up as much as you can. So again, defile down, diseases up. Outside of that, it's like this. If you have wounds on the target, you're going to use coil. You can one coil, okay? One doom burst coil is going to burst 2 wounds on the target. So it's basically just about managing runic power, runes, and wounds. So it's like this. We got the wounds on the target. Either we can break the wound with a doom burst, or we can break the wound with a clawing shadows. But remember though, once you press a doom burst on the target, like look at this. Once I press a doom burst on this target, watch what's going to happen. So you don't want to overcap wounds, right? Like see how this guy has 5 wounds? You don't really want to fester there, but I'm just doing it for demonstration purposes. So I have 6 wounds on this target, right? So watch, when I press doom burst, look, we get in the rotten touch debuff. So now all of a sudden he takes 36% more clawing shadows damage from me. Okay. So I got my dots on them. I got my stuff. I'm just basically bursting wounds and then coiling, right? Bursting wounds and coiling. That's pretty much it with everything down. But one thing that's important though is everything about this build you can do from range, right? Like I can dot this guy from range, I can coil from ranged, I can defile from ranged, I can clawing shadows from range. The only thing that I can't do from ranged is apply wounds to them, okay? My pet can because I'm playing infected claws, but other than that, I can't. So what that means is if you're getting kited a lot or you have to kite and you're weaving into melee range, when you're in melee range, the thing that you want to prioritize is applying wounds with festering. Because again, that's the only thing you can't do from ranged, okay? But yeah, that's basically the gist of it, guys. The gist of it is keep your dot down, keep a defile on them, and then what you want to do is you want to basically have a bunch of wounds on the target and be spamming coils until you get that rotten touch proc, okay? So you want to spam coils trying to get the proc. Once you get the proc, see this, how he has 4 wounds on him and he has the proc? That's when I want to clawing shadows, okay? So what I'm basically trying to do is I want to have a whole bunch of wounds set up on people, and then I want to get the proc, and then I want to just clawing shadows into the proc. But one thing that's really big is that this can be a game changer. You want to have a bunch of people stacked up, just pre-prepare. So sometimes Doom Burst is a little annoying because I'm trying to like put wounds on multiple people and it just keeps procking and eating my wounds, right? So Doom Burst, you can change that out if you don't like it. It's not as huge value right now. But putting a bunch of wounds on people like this, and then watch this, okay? So I have a defile down, which defile makes my clawing shadows cleave. I have a defile and a proc. So watch, I press this proc. Both of these targets now have rotten touch, okay? So when I start cleaving clawing shadows on these targets that are both taking increased damage, it does a lot of damage, okay? It does a lot of damage. So that's on the basic with clawing shadows, it's just dot, coil, claw, like wounds, burst the wounds, fish with coil, right? But it's kind of intuitive. Once you do this for a little while, you kind of figure it out. It's hard for me to perfectly explain like what you press when, but yeah, it's kind of intuitive. But yeah, so that's like I said, that's a big play. Like apply a bunch of wounds on a bunch of people and then drop a defile and then coil so that you have the proc, and then just start cleaving them all while they're all taking increased damage, and you will do a ton of cleaving damage to them. But yeah, that's basically it. Try to play around your rotten touch as much as possible. The most perfect scenario you can get is getting somebody to 35% HP, and then like let me show you. This is like the most perfect scenario, okay? Like I'm fishing for, okay, I got my proc. So this guy's got 6 stacks. He's chilling. This is the most perfect scenario. Look, his health is low, right? So I can do a death coil, and then he has 4 wounds left. He's in reaping range. So all those clawing shadows are going to hit super hard, right? So the best case scenario for you is to have wounds on somebody and have them low HP while you have the Rotten Touch proc on them. That's how you're going to really start doing crazy damage when people are low and incinerate them. But I know that's a lot to take in, but again, just keep practicing it, and it's kind of intuitive. So just apply your wounds, prioritize applying your wounds when you're in melee range, because that's the only thing you can do. And then either pre-set up your wounds and do a big cleave like that on both people with this, or just basically just spam coils and fish for a proc. If you don't get it, then just you can burst some wounds even without the proc. Coil wounds, you know, see what I mean? Just keep rotating between the two, and then just reapply your wounds. But yeah, playing around that proc is what's going to make a difference, especially if it's on multiple people. You can do some insane amount of damage. But that's basically the clawing, okay? I don't want to beat a dead horse too much. You guys, like I said, you just kind of got to go and you'll figure it out. But just try to manage your wounds, right? Try to manage your festering wounds. Try to keep your necrotic wounds up. And then try to use your procs. Maybe drop Doomburst, though, for now, because I mean, you don't have to. Like I said, it's just going to make it a little more clunky for you at first, potentially, until you get it all figured out on how to like perfectly manage the wounds. But yeah, so your burst rotation is like this, okay? That was your general rotation. Here's your burst rotation. It's pretty simple, honestly. So me personally, what I like to do is this. I'll drop a defile on them from a distance while I'm running in, because that will AoE slow everybody, and it will also start doing damage. So I'll defile as I'm running over, and then it's pretty simple. A-bomb, Dark Transformation, Unholy Assault, Apocalypse, and then just drop another defile and just start doing your normal rotation at this point, right? See, we got a Rotten Touch on this guy. He's low HP, so I put the Rotten Touch on him. I put a Fester so that I have wounds, and then I just start spamming the Clawing Shadows, right? Because he has it. And then I got another one, and rinse and repeat, right? Rinse and repeat. But that's the burst rotation. The burst rotation is super easy. Just A-bomb, Dark Transformation, Unholy Assault, Apocalypse. Boom, there it is. Ideally, have a bunch of people stacked in it, and you're good. Like grip them together, blind them, yeah, and then just drop another defile. But so the burst rotation is super simple. You guys will get that one down very easily, I'm sure. It's just the when to use clawing and when to use coil basically is the thing you're gonna have to figure out. When to clawing, when to coil, and when to just play around the proc, or when to fester, right? Like, cause sometimes it's like I'll like this, for example, right? Okay, right here, boom, I Doomburst this guy. He's only got one wound though. So instead of just starting clawing now, I'll fester once, and then I'll start clawing, you know what I mean? So I have multiple wounds to burst. And the reason the haste comes in crazy for this is because then you can get more globals off, right? You can get more Rotten Touch off. You can get more wounds applied faster, everything like that. So, because this is absolutely godly. If you can get like, if you got 2 procs in a row and you put this on their entire team, and then you started cleaving them all low HP, you're just gonna, like, the damage you can do will be insane, honestly, especially with the tier set. So the tier set makes this like 40%, like coil 40% better during our go. But yeah, that's basically it, guys. Like, that's how you do damage. That's the burst rotation. Everything else, you kind of just fill in the gaps, right? You can come watch my stream at twitch.tv/PartywafflesX. You can come check that out, and you can see, like, watch what I do into certain matchups, right? So you can basically, if there's any blanks from this guide, you can fill them in with the stream, or you can ask me and I will also help you. But yeah, so this guide wasn't quite as long as the other one before because I didn't want to deep dive in all the talents. Again, if you want to play the dot build, just take a look at last season's guide because it's all still completely relevant in terms of talent and playstyle. Nothing has changed from the talents from last season. They're still really good. And then these ones are also just as good. So yeah, I hope you guys do well. If you like the video, drop a like, hit that subscribe button, and say what's up in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.